Hello, welcome to the Vineyard Church podcast. For more information, visit us at vkcwest.com.
All right, well, we are in the midst of a series called Kingdom Living, and so it talks about what's in the Sermon on the Mount. So one of Jesus's first sermons, and he has people starting to follow, and there's kind of some hype going on, and so Jesus is trying to make sure the people know, hey, this is what it means to follow me. This is what's really going on. I want you to understand this is what life is like in the kingdom of God that I'm bringing in. And so the first week, we learned that the people that are truly blessed or truly favored by God are ultimately the ones that recognize their brokenness and their need for God. That they actually recognize, I need Jesus, I need God. And it's just not from the beginning, but it's beginning, middle, end. I need God. Those are the people that are favored and blessed, even though they don't have everything together. And then we saw that those same people are the light of the world. They're the salt of the earth. They actually are the ones that are actually bringing the stuff of God to other people then. And then last week we saw this strange thing because everybody, including us, is probably like, oh, Jesus is backing off of all these requirements, all of this law that we see. Do this, don't do that. He's bringing something totally new. And Jesus says, actually, I've come to fulfill the law. And so he starts on this idea of like, you actually will be righteous. And we're actually supposed to change our target. That like, oh, really? Like I truly can be transformed and be a person that actually lines up with the way God said life can be? Yeah, in Jesus for sure. And so for the next 4 weeks, what he does is, he didn't do it for 4 weeks, but we're going to do it for 4 weeks, is he starts to address things of everyday life that we actually all go through. Like there's not a person that doesn't interact with the subjects that Jesus is going to talk about. So here's what he's going to talk about, and what we're going to talk about over the next 4 weeks is anger, sexual attraction, marriage unhappiness, integrity in our words, and then lastly, what we do when we're wounded by another person or even disagreements that bring us to the place of enemy. And what Jesus is doing is he's trying to bring us back to true rightness or true righteousness. Because if you look all the way back to the person of Abraham in the Old Testament, in the book of Genesis, in chapter 15, it says that Abraham believed God and it was given to him as righteousness, that he had right relationship with God and right relationship with other people. I mean, that's what everybody's ultimately looking for. And so what Jesus is doing is he's saying, hey, will you let your belief, like your faith in Jesus and about him, will you let that work itself into every area of your life? Even into anger, even into sexual attraction, even into your marriage disputes, even into the integrity of what you say and do, even into when you have enemies, you see somebody as enemy or they see you as an enemy. Will you let your belief have its complete work into that? That's what Jesus is going after. And what Jesus is doing is he's sharing the mind of God. He's not just sharing just some rote, hey, here, just do this. He's sharing this is what God meant when he shared that. And so it's pretty demanding. And it's good because, Jesus says, hey, come as you are. Like we see that all throughout Scripture, and that's how we are as a church, come as you are. But, we have a saying too, but don't stay that way, right? I mean, you are hanging out with God himself that created everything that is. And so why not be transformed into the person that he dreamed up that you would be, to be in that fullness? And so that's what we're going to walk through. So let's read as Jesus speaks of anger today. You have heard that it was said to the people, long ago, you shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, Raka, is answerable to the court. And anyone who says, you fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell. Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them. Then come and offer your gift. Settle matters quickly with your adversary who is taking you to court. Do it while you are still together on the way, or your adversary may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. Truly, I tell you, you will not get out until you have paid the last penny. So we talked last week that a lot of times what people like to do with Jesus is they like to tone him down. And, we may like to do that too. Well, I know what Jesus said, but there's absolutely no power in just knowing what Jesus said. It's actually doing what Jesus said. We find out, whoa, this really has power to even change me. And so what Jesus is getting at here is that anger destroys. Anger absolutely destroys life. It destroys everything. It is something that destroys. And I was thinking, you ever see, I was going to say kids, but around here, it's different. In California, like fireworks, because it's so dry and you have, where I'm from California, you typically, like fireworks are a no-no. And so we move here and you have World War III happening in our neighborhood. Literally, there was one year I was driving back from a friend's house to our house while this was all going on. And it was like I was like in a video game driving through and there's mortars shooting off next to me. And people are mad at me for driving on the road. They're like, you're in the way of our fireworks display. Literally, the displays that are in neighborhoods here are what everybody goes to see there. And like thousands to watch. But my point is that, you think of fireworks, you're kind of like, well, what's going to give the biggest bang? What's going to, well, let's put this in here and it's going to blow up this tomato or this watermelon or, these things. And it's kind of interesting, but we kind of do that with anger in our lives sometimes. It's like, well, let me just give this. Let me just let anger out here and let's see what it does. And it always destroys. It absolutely always destroys. And in most of us, most days, we experience anger, either in ourselves or we observe it or experience it from others. So anger is a strong feeling of displeasure and belligerence aroused by a real or supposed wrong. It's triggered by frustration or alienation, hurt or threat, injustice. We learn anger as a response in our lives, typically really young. And the effects of anger medically have been proven that anger can be a cause of disease in our lives or sickness. Misery, depression, inefficiency in our jobs and our lives, accidents. Anger can be a cause of all of that. So anger destroys. It absolutely does. So let's look at what Jesus is getting at here. Verse 21, it says, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, you shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, Raka, is answerable in the court. And anyone who says, you fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell. So you shall not murder is the sixth commandment of the 10 commandments given to Moses by God in the wilderness to give to the people. It's the sixth commandment. And so Jesus is addressing it. What he's doing is he's speaking against the scribes and the Pharisees. Notice that he says, you've heard it said, okay? The common people, they mostly did not read or speak Hebrew. And so the scriptures were in Hebrew, And they had mostly, because they had been dispersed throughout the earth, and so they were in other places. So the common people would typically speak Aramaic, and then some speak Greek as well. And so the Pharisees kind of had a market on things, and the scribes, and so they would not only say, well, this is what it says, and then here's the interpretation. And so Jesus says, you've heard it said that it was said to the people long ago, do not murder. And so what the Pharisees did is they just stopped it at that. Hey, if you don't murder, you're fulfilling the sixth commandment. Hot dog, right? I've never murdered anybody. I'm good. And we look at that and we say, well, that's kind of silly, but could it be deeper? Like, was God getting at something deeper when it came to murder? And so what Jesus is saying, there's a lot more to it than just murder. And because we say that too, right? Like, we like to compare. So if we're struggling with something, we say, well, at least I'm not like that. Or at least I haven't done this. I mean, it's a dialogue that we can get going in our hearts. So Jesus deepens the commandment to include thoughts, deeds, anger, and insult in addition to murder. And he puts it on the same level as murder. Why does he do that? And it's like, come on, Well, raka is referencing an Aramaic word, and it means like empty. And we think that it's like speaking of somebody's intellect. So it's like saying to somebody like, you empty-headed person, like you're so unintelligent. You're like that. It's like that. It's just, and Jesus says that if you do that you will be subject to judgment. I mean, okay. He's raising the bar here. Or is he? This is a part of the original intent of God. Or if you say, you fool, which is probably a transliteration of a Hebrew word that actually means like you outcast, or you one that is in danger of going to hell. Like, that's where you're going to go. And so what Jesus is saying, like, hey, the one that condemns others to being outcast to that place, you are in danger as well. Now, why is Jesus doing this? Well, in Genesis chapter 9, verse 6, it talks about that you should not murder or you should not spill people's blood because they are made in the image of God. So the same thing holds true. Jesus is saying that if we simply speak insults and poorly of other people and condemn them and go after them with our words or our actions, we are pushing against God's very image. And so when we condemn people, when we put them into a different place, when we call them names or when we have anger towards them, Jesus is saying you're pushing against the image of God. And yes, even the ones that don't deserve it. Right? Because you say, well, what about the horrible people? Well, I don't know. Who are we talking about? Jesus levels the ground and he just says, hey, it's more than just that very act of murder. There's typically right around 20,000 murders in the United States a year, give or take, every year. How many of those, so we're speaking homicides, not necessarily accidents, but like homicides where there's intent. How many of those would take place if there wasn't anger? They're all fueled by anger. Whether it's in the moment or whether thought out, it's fueled by anger. And so Jesus knows that anger leads to murder. And so instead of just saying, hey, don't murder, he's saying, don't even get near the edge of the cliff. Let's deal with the real problem, which is anger. So what is anger? Anger is a secondary emotion. So in other words, it lets us know that something's wrong. It lets us know that a line has been crossed. It lets us know that there's a place there. That our ego has gotten bruised, our will has been attacked, or our desires are being pushed up against. Or things just aren't going the way they're supposed to. And anger comes out. Now, just getting angry is not the problem. It's what we do with anger. Because God gave us anger to let us know something's wrong or off. The problem is that typically when we feel anger, we see it as, well, it's their problem or his problem or her problem. What if God gave us anger to show, oh, we're carrying some hurt. We're carrying something that we haven't dealt with, some woundedness, that we're actually now putting this on other situations and upon other people. What if it was to alert us, not about others? So what matters is what we do with anger. Dr. Les Carter says there's three things we typically do with anger. There's the repressing or denial of anger. In other words, I'm not angry. You got steam coming out of your ears, nostrils flaring, I'm not angry. And you tell others that, you tell yourself that. And repressing anger is very dangerous because it has long-term effects. Because you're pouring in this container and anger is building and building and building and contempt grows and it's very dangerous. Then there's expressing verbally or non-verbally anger, right? And there's a whole scale to that as far as the way we express it. And then there's releasing. And releasing recognizes that anger is no longer needed. In our ability to actually, because we all would want to say, yeah, that's me. I'm the third one. I'm the third one. I just release the anger. But our ability to release is how well we've managed ourselves in expressing. Realizing that the expressing of anger is the hinge of things and say, I don't need to express this, or I can deal with this a different way. And so release is really where we want to go. But the problem ground is really when we hold on to anger, right? And so it's interesting. We learn to hold on to anger, right? I mean, you even see movies like Waterboy, football movie, Adam Sandler. It's just like the whole movie is built on use your anger. Use your rage, and he does it. And he if you watch it, he just gets going and he hits people and everybody celebrates this because he's using this anger that's within him to do this. And we learn patterns like that. For some of us, the only time that we're truly vulnerable is when we express our anger. Because we may not sit there and have a heart talk and share our feelings and maybe share emotions of crying or those things. But whenever something pushes our button, that anger comes to the surface. And really, it's something that we learn when we're small children because we want everybody to know, I'm not okay. I'm hurting. But it's confusing because we let it out in situations that are not that situation, that don't have anything to do with that, right? You have road rage. Is it really that the guy didn't put his blinker on and pulled in front of you? Is it really that the woman didn't fully stop and you didn't know? No, it's you're building, and then it comes out at that moment. And so what we do is we do like I have been doing with my lawn a few times since I moved here. I talk to people and they say, oh, I love mowing my lawn. Sometimes I do, but in Southern California, it's mostly a desert. And so if you have lawns, it's a smaller space. And so here, there's just grass everywhere, you guys. And it's just, and it keeps growing. So what I do sometimes is when I get behind, and this week, I was behind like 2 to 3 weeks. The neighbors are driving by and they're shaming me and wagging fingers at me. Literally, I can tell they treat me different when my lawn is not mowed. And so I just got enough, and they drive by, not wanting to be seen with me. And so I just said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a mullet cut. You ever do this? So it's business in the front and a party in the back. So you don't mow the back, you just do the front, and everybody thinks you've got your stuff together. That's what I do several times. And then like the next week or days, I'll do the back too. But that's how we are with anger, right, you guys? Like, well, I'm gonna put it together. I've got it together. I'm gonna deny it. I don't have anything going on. I'm good with all this stuff. But inside, anger's having a party. And it comes out every once in a while. You know, one way that we see this in our lives is like cancel culture, which is, somebody missteps or a company missteps or does something and it's just cancel them. And it's really interesting. I think it's one of the greatest signs that we carry around, like just suppressed anger. Because people say something or do something or make a mistake, there's just no room. It's just condemn them. And Jesus would say, and I would say, Christians are to have no part in that. It's actually the antithesis of Christianity. Condemning. Christianity is about death to life. We don't condemn because Jesus is able to raise the dead. And so I know it's, but it's so easy, right? I mean, somebody's online and says this, or somebody tells you something, or you hear gossip about something. And so actually what's going on is that you just hop in with your own anger and it's just like, yeah, let's get them. And when we do that, we actually lose our superpower, which is actually love, which is actually grace, which is actually, right? What does God say about himself in the Old Testament? He says he's slow to anger. You know why he's slow to anger? It's because he doesn't carry it. He doesn't carry it. And so God doesn't cancel anybody. And so Jesus says, we're not going to cancel anybody either. So as Christians, we're not to play on that playground. Everybody says, come on over here. There's a proverb that talks about, it's written to a young one. It says, don't go and be with that crowd that says, come on with us. Let's go attack this person. Let's go spill their blood. Let's go take their stuff. Let's do this. And it's this picture of just falling into a crowd of just does that. And just like when Jesus says, we look, well, I'm not murdering. But he's actually saying like, hey, if you just hop in and you're saying things and like insulting things or condemning people, you're in that stream. That's what it leads to ultimately. And politicians keep us pretty riled up too, don't they? Right? I mean, we know that. We know that, right? Yep. That's the game of government. And I don't know if it's just today but is they want to keep us riled up, keep us angry, keep us, right? And actually social media, that's something that happens too, all the studies have shown. And actually ads and news, and if we can just keep people on edge, then we can get results that we want. And so we actually have a different choice as Christians. And so what Jesus says, he says, be reconciled and settle matters quickly. Don't carry things around. And so verse 23 he says, therefore, if you're offering your gift at the altar and therefore remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar and first go and be reconciled to them. Then come and offer your gift. So whole worship actually includes reconciliation. So if I'm bringing my heart to God and I'm singing, God, I love you, I worship you, I give my life to you, but somebody has something against me, it says. In other words, I'm cognizant, I'm being a steward of the relationships. Jesus is saying, like, in extreme situation, that you would actually leave your gift, and in that context, leave your sacrifice that's being sacrificed to God, leave it there, go and make things right, then offer your sacrifice. So Jesus is saying that our actual true relationship with people, the state of them, whether it's they are angry with us or we are angry with them, actually plays into our relationship with God, our true relationship. That God cares as much about that as his relationship with you, with him. He says, you go make that right. Be reconciled to them. And he's talking about immediately, like, why would you wait? go do what you were able to do. So where relationships have gone to a place of anger against us or us towards others, we're to deal with it. We're to address it. We're not to let it grow. And he's talking about close relationships here. He talks about a brother or sister. So it could be a brother or sister in Christ. It could be family. Your close relationships, don't let it stew. And then in verse 25, he says, settle matters quickly with your adversary who is taking you to court. Do it while you are still together on the way, or your adversary may hand. Are you guys still with me? You guys good? Okay. All right. Do it while you are still together on the way, or your adversary may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. Truly, I tell you, you will not get out until you have paid the last penny. What is Jesus talking about? Well, now he's talking about a relationship with those that are farthest from you, but you still have a relationship. Those that would be an enemy. And what is he saying? He's saying that to settle matters quickly. And so the Greek word here is eunoeo, which means to make friends quickly. But let's back that off and make it less idealistic. I think if you apply that word, it's saying come to agreement quickly. So trade your anger for agreement. And what is the idea here? He's saying like, hey, you may think that you're right. You may think that you're all in the right and you're going to go to court or you're going to go to the person that decides this thing and they're going to put it in your favor. But maybe not. It could actually become more extreme if you wait. So he's saying like if you and somebody else are walking into court, you actually say, hey, can we settle this right now outside instead of going in there? And it speaks of penalty. It's saying like, the penalty could be greater for you. And so Jesus is saying like, do it quickly. Get it done. Ephesians 4:26-27, Paul speaks of this. And he says, in your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry. And do not give the devil a foothold. So what is it saying? It's saying that if we hang on to it and we think we're going to really push this thing and we're going to really get our way, well, you may end up being the one that gets gotten if you hang on to it. In other words, Jesus is saying like, do you really want to play this game? Do you really want to go here where you are carrying around poison within your system? And it could, is it that important that you would carry around this poison that could burst at any time and consume you? That's what he's saying. And so Jesus invites us to the safety of God's kingdom. Right? Because I think a lot of anger comes out of not feeling safe. I think as maybe little children, we start to experience things that we feel embarrassed or we have things done to us or we're treated differently, and so we start to use anger or hold on to anger to protect ourselves. But Jesus, what he's doing is he's setting himself up as greater than Moses in the lives of the people he's speaking to. You may not look at Moses at this high level of the one who speaks to you, but that's who they look to. And he's going beyond Moses and saying, this was God's intent. Moses just shared this with you, but let me show you what my dad meant. And so, what are the voices in your life that Jesus needs to supersede today when it comes to anger in relationships? Right? Our parents tell us different things about anger in relationships, and well, that's the way you do it, when you're this person. Well, when that happens, you do this. Or there's our self. Well, when this happens, this is what I do. Or this is what I do with anger. Well, why would I get rid of anger? Anger comforts me. Right? Anger protects me because in a moment, I'm there. And yet Jesus invites us to this place, and it's a strange place, you guys, because this is kingdom living. We're living the future now. the reality is we're not totally safe. Like if we just look around our environment here, we're not totally safe. Things are still in process. Christ has come with the kingdom of God. He's invaded in time and space, and things are moving towards this end, God's preferred end, where there's no more sin, there's no more dying, there's no more disease, there's no more hurt, there's no more division. We're going to this place where the lion lays down with the lamb, and that's where we're headed. But we look around and say, are we there yet? And we know we're not, but Jesus says, I want you to live as if you're already there, settled in to your campground, sitting back in your camp chair, fires in the pit. You're enjoying a good drink, it's cool, you're looking at the view, and you're safe. I want you to live that way, even though you're still hiking, even though you still feel the pain of the pack and those things. I want you to live in such a way with one another and yourself and with anger that you're totally safe, that there's no more threat. That's the life that Jesus calls us to. And you say, well, who's going to protect me? Who's going to care for me? Who's going to defend me? Will you let your belief in Jesus work itself into this area? That's what he wants to do. So the reality is anger is not something new, you guys, right? I mean, 4th chapter of the Bible, Cain and Abel. They both bring their two brothers. One brings their sacrifice to God. God rejects one, rejects Cain's. And then it says that Cain is downcast and he is angry. And God comes to him and he says, hey, Cain, why are you downcast? Why are you angry? Well, he didn't feel safe. But then God says this, he says, sin crouches at the door and it seeks to master you, but you must master it. And it goes on and it says that Cain did not master his anger or his sin. And he went out and killed his brother. And so Jesus says the same message to us today. He says, if you carry around anger, if you carry around really unforgiveness, if you carry around contempt, if you carry around condemnation, it seeks to master you. And it's affecting you in ways that you know not now. You look at maybe your job performance and you say, man, I know I'm better than this. Or you look at your relationships, your marriage, your family relationships, things around you. Say, I know that. What is it that's off here? Could it be anger? Could it be anger that you're carrying around? James, the brother of Jesus, he writes that the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Interpreted, anger doesn't bring rightness. Anger actually doesn't even work, you guys. Like when we use it to protect ourselves, it doesn't work. It doesn't make us right. It doesn't make anybody else or anything else right. It's not going to bring the righteousness of God. The only thing that brings the righteousness of God is us surrendering fully to this belief being worked out fully into our anger. So think of your emotional state and your relational state with others and your anger like being a piece of dough and you need to put another ingredient in there. Put it in and work it throughout the whole dough. Be free. Allow Jesus to love you. It's actually just a choice. I'm going to foster anger or I'm going to allow myself to be loved. I'm going to allow Jesus to love me. I had a football coach in high school. He passed away just this last year, but he was a big, huge man and played NFL, and his brother played in the Major League Baseball, just incredible athlete. He was just massive. Like his calves were just the size of people's torsos, it seemed like, you know. And man, I remember he showed grace upon me. I remember one time he pulled me out during practice and I was trying to gain position and I yelled at him. Like, what are you doing? in anger. And he's like, oh. And then ever after that, every time he'd see me, I'd walk in, hey, coach. He would just grab me with these huge ham hocks of, he'd just pull me in, Because he saw like I was carrying something. And it would release. Like, Coach, I can't breathe, I'm being suffocated by your love. I didn't feel angry when he was hugging me. And I'd be off the ground. He's, like, just kind of like this. I'm like, Coach, I'm kind of embarrassed right now. I don't care. Now I look back, he was kind of like rocking me, right? You have a little baby. That's one of the first things we learn, Michelle and I, with our oldest is, I'm like, well, what do we do when they cry? You just hold them. And eventually they give. They tire out or. So that's what Jesus wants to do with you and I. If we're carrying anger today, he invites us in. He says, there's a better way. Camp out with me. Camp out with Jesus.
Thanks for listening this week. If you are looking for ways to serve, give, or get connected, go to vkcwest.com.